and welcome to the For Her Empire podcast. I'm your host, Abby Ngauche, and in this podcast, we address the personal and the business issues that female entrepreneurs face in their day-to-day lives. My guest today is a certified social media expert, and so we can expect a lot of awesomeness from her today. So, hi, Deborah Finestone.
Hi, nice to be here today.
Nice to have you here. So Deborah is, like I said, a certified social media expert, and she owns a marketing company called Finestone Marketing Solutions. So why don't you tell us a bit more about Deborah and a bit more about Finestone Marketing Solutions?
Sure. So my name's Deborah Finestone. My company is Finestone Marketing Solutions. I've been doing social media marketing for about 6 years now. I live in California. I live in Northern Bay Area of California. Although I work with people all over, certainly all over the country, all over the US, all over the world, because what I do is digital naturally. It doesn't really matter where you are. And it's something I think everybody can use to help their business grow. I work with small businesses and nonprofits. I love working with nonprofits, so that's something a little bit different. And yeah, I'm happy to be here teaching some things that I see people doing that are like, they break my heart because I'm like, this is really easy to fix if you know that you should fix it.
Okay. That actually brings us to today's topic. So today's conversation is about the three common mistakes you make in social media and how you can actually fix it. So as Deborah just said, it's an easy thing to do, an easy fix. And today she's going to show us how to make this easy fix. Woo!
I am
Okay.
all about making social media less stressful for people. I find like a lot of entrepreneurs find it something that's very stressful for them. They get really anxious about it. There's a lot of confusion around it. And my goal with the people I work with is to get rid of that confusion, kind of offer some clarity, give a strategy to it that makes it a whole lot simpler to do it better, be more effective.
Okay. So what are these mistakes?
Sure. So the three most common mistakes I see people doing are selling all the time, posting and ghosting, and thinking they have to do everything themselves.
All right. Can we go to the first one, which is like selling all their time?
Right. So there's a maxim in marketing that people don't like to be sold to, but they love buying. So the question is, when you, right? It sounds right. Like you want to get something, but you don't want to be sold to. You don't want someone making you like feel pressured about it, right?
Yes. Yes.
So how do you walk that line? Because of course we're all here as a business. You're trying to sell something. You're trying to provide something to people.
The sales posts are important.
Right, of course. So there's a guideline that tends to be really helpful with it. And the idea is that you spend 80% of your time providing value, entertaining, and educating your audience, and 20% of the time selling. So teaching people stuff, providing value, giving information about your subject that you're an expert in, that's kind of clear. The entertaining, I like to explain, that's not just memes, it can be quotes and stuff. It can also include things that'll help motivate people, things that inspire people, or commiserating with common problems. I've seen some really funny posts where people are talking about whatever is a common problem for their audience and them. So how do you kind of figure it out? When do you do this 80% and when do you do the 20%? Well, that depends on your business. For some businesses, it's very seasonal. So the most obvious example is retail, at least here in the US. Right around between Thanksgiving and Christmas is Black Friday, and that's their selling season. So that's when you sell and provide value, educate, and entertain other parts of the year. A lot of businesses might have courses, or if they're in a program or a group program, they launch it at some point. They start it a few times a year or something. Well, that's when you sell. And otherwise, provide value, educate, and entertain. And the thing to keep in mind with all of that is you want to have a little different perspective than a lot of people have naturally. And the idea is you have to think about it from your audience point of view. What's in it for them? What do they want and need? It's not about your agenda or your interests. So again, it's kind of like yes, your agenda is that you're trying to sell something, but that's not
Yeah.
going to appeal to people. If you're solving their problems, that appeals to people. People have problems and they want them solved. They want help doing it. The other thing that's, yeah, sure.
Okay, so the part about solving a problem and providing value instead of selling all the time. So would that be things like, let's say, a blog post you've written somewhere? Let's say you have a freebie. Would that count as the educating side, or would that become a salesy part since it's your content?
So I would think a blog generally, actually even the freebie, often it's you're educating, you're providing value. So I'm giving you information. So for example, the way I use it is my blog and my social posts, I am just giving information, helping people with social media. It's free. That's not selling. And then when I, for example, was launching a new program at the beginning of the year, it was a little bit more salesy. It was, here's what I'm talking about. Here's what I'm doing now. Here's something else I offer. If you're interested, contact me. And a little bit more of the why people might want this, that kind of thing. But otherwise, most of the time, I'm just offering information. A lot of times I'll do stuff like this where I'll see someone making a mistake, or I learned something, or I see an example of something. One I did was, and it was a blog post, was looking at the metrics for one of my clients, and that I learned something. And it was a good example of here's why you look at your metrics, because I learned something that changed how I did something and it made it better. The other thing that you do in that time is let people get to know you. And that's especially important if you're any kind of service provider where your ideal client would be working with you. So again, just myself as an example, you work with me. This isn't a $20 product that you walk away from and it doesn't matter whether you like me as a person or want to talk to me as a person.
Yeah.
So you just have to let people get to know you. This can often be the hardest thing for some people. I feel it runs into questions of either privacy or if they're
how
introverted.
much do I put out there? Like, do I just share like my food pictures and then go, I'm having this for breakfast? Like, what personal aspects of me do they want to know about?
Well, I think to some extent that depends on what your business is. So if you're a foodie or a cook, by all means, put out the pictures of your food. But again, the idea is to let them get to know what it would be like to work with you. So for me, when I'm talking to people for work, I'm probably not talking about my breakfast very often. But one thing,
Yes.
right? Like that's just not, but like my values I do, and like how I deal with other people and building relationships. And like sometimes it'll be personal. I'll tell you, one of the most popular posts that I did that was really successful for me that had nothing to do with business, had nothing to do with work, was a few months ago. I posted a picture from my husband and my wedding. We got married 2 years ago. It was a second marriage for both of us. So we only got married a couple of years ago. And it was a shout out to my husband, to the, to the supporter behind the scenes, to the person who is always there.
Who's supporting you. That's so sweet.
Exactly. He's like the team member. And it was just kind of like this cute picture. And it was a few paragraphs of thank you so much for putting up with me when I don't do my share of the chores and, helping out with stuff like that and running errands and, just generally listening to me as I'm kind of learning all this stuff and creating a business. And it was very popular because it's that very personal thing. Now, is that something deep? No. I'm married. This is not a secret by any means in my life. But it's that thing that people go, oh, that's nice. That she has, people always want to like cheer on someone else having a good relationship with their partner. So like that was one, just like, and yeah, that's that thing where like somewhere in the course of if you're working with me and talking to me, you're going to find out I'm married, I'm remarried, I was divorced, and we've probably been married, you probably find out we've been married only a couple of years. It's just that thing you're going to find out, and it's part of who I am. So.
Oh, that makes sense. That makes sense. So the personal part should be less about my breakfast, unless what I do is related to that, and more about what will it be like having a conversation with me, working with me, those things that you care about or things that might pop up as we converse naturally.
Right. And so one I see a lot of also is women who are parents and who work with, And the two examples I'm thinking of, essentially, they're coaches for women entrepreneurs. And so it's them showing, I deal with the same things I know you deal with. I have 2 little toddlers. I have to still take care of the house. I have to, here's my kid walking in on my video in the middle, because that stuff happens. And again, it just makes it that much more personable. And the whole thing in marketing is you're trying to get people to know, like, and trust you. And this is how they get to know you and how they get to like you, because it's very human, right? Your kid walking in, your dog walking in.
Yeah. I guess you stop being this stock imagey profile on social media. And now you become this actual 3-dimensional person with likes and dislikes and struggles and all of that I can relate to.
Right. It's making you relatable. It's making you approachable. And I also want to point out, I think this is something people think is different on different platforms, but I don't really think it is, or it's something I play with. So people think, Facebook's very personal, Instagram's very personal, but LinkedIn is all business. I think you can do a lot of this on LinkedIn. I think, again, maybe not the bathing suit picture at the beach, but the things about your family, things about, that you were out with your dog, because again, it's still you being more human, and it becomes the subconscious question people ask is this someone I want to work with? And you want to show them if they are your people. Not everybody's your people, and that's okay too. So
makes sense. Okay, so we've gone over the first part of just selling all the time. I mean, we've talked about the more personal aspects of it. Now let's come to the sales posts. Is there like a number of sales posts you should do per month before it gets too much? Or do you do sales posts for different products? Or let's say in a month, sales posts for the same products? What's the makeup of a good sales post?
So that depends on what you're selling, how many things you're selling, and how much you're posting. So I can't say like a number per month, because that's why the percentage works well, is the 80% of not selling, because it depends what, I won't say do 10 posts a month, because what if you only do 10 posts a month? That's 100%. By the way, don't only do 10 posts a month. Well, consistency is really helpful, both technically, it goes with the whole algorithm thing that most people looking at social media have heard at least a little bit about. Like the algorithm likes, so the platform likes if you are more consistent. So posting a little bit more often does actually help, and it gives the system, the algorithm, more information of what you like, because it looks at okay, Abby goes on Instagram and she likes her friend's picture of her dog, and she likes her other friend's picture of her breakfast, and she scrolls past the pictures from the, authors that she might follow, and she likes a picture of her friend's vacation. So what it ends up doing is it will start showing you more pictures of friends' vacations, dogs, food, and less of the things that you're not clicking on or you're not responding to. So you have to be there for the system to learn these are the things people like. If you're not there, then it just doesn't find it, right? There's nothing to find. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. Okay. So
let me go back to your question.
An example. Yeah, it's still kind of similar.
I was going to say, I'm not avoiding the question. So how much to sell? It depends what you're selling. So easy one, again, is me. I have basically 2 services that I provide. So it's not going to be a ton of posts, because there's just not that many things to talk about. I'm just started working with a client, and he makes candles, soaps, lotions, stuff like that. And with all the kind of varieties he has, he says it's probably about 100 different products.
Wow. Okay.
So a lot more of his is going to be products, because they are different. One is a candle, one is soap, one is this scent, one is a different scent, appeals to someone else. This one's bigger, this one's, there's variation. So there'll probably be more about the products themselves in that case, because there's more to talk about.
Yeah, it's an e-commerce store. It makes sense to have more of your products.
Right. You still want it there for sure, because it's, again, that's the point of all this. And that's to some extent the point of why people are following you, because they like the thing or they're interested in the thing. So show them the thing. Don't hide it. It's actually something some business owners do, especially when they're not on social media. They're like, and they know, like, I provide this great service, or I have this really fantastic product that I've come up with, but they're not telling anybody about it. Tell
There's
people
the
about
fear,
it.
though.
Right. How
There's
you
the
help people
fear.
is you have to tell them about it. You have to, there's no point in being the best kept secret in the world. So
That's no way to go about it. The best
right.
kept secret in the world.
It is. And there's so many people, especially like I've come across like coaches and stuff, and they're brilliant, they're great, they're heart centered, they really can help people. But if you don't put yourself out there in as many ways as possible, really, you're limiting the number of people that you are able to help. And in that way, you're kind of doing a disservice. And I think most of us, or at least a lot of us in business, are out there because we want to help people, because we want to serve people in whatever our own special way is, whatever gift we have. And you have to put yourself out there to do it.
Okay. Okay, so I got that part about posting too many sales posts. Let's not talk about the part that interests me so much, posting and ghosting. It sounds so cool.
Glad that like you find that interesting. It took me a while to come up with the term for that.
It sounds so nice.
Right. So here's the thing. It's another one of those marketing maxims, and it's that the fortune is in the follow-up. So you wouldn't, if you have a retail store, if you have a brick and mortar store, and someone walks into your store and is looking around at stuff and then comes up and asks a question, you wouldn't stare them in the face and then walk away without answering them.
Like a creep.
It's rude, but it's unprofessional. You're unlikely to get a sale, right? Like, you're going to answer that person. So do the same thing online is my point. It's basically just giving good customer service, even if it's in a different form. Just answer people. And that's the point. So a lot of people will think social media is I am pushing stuff out. But the big difference between all digital marketing and like advertising, like billboards, is that advertising, non-digital, is very one-sided. It is you pushing out a message. It's here's my advertisement in the magazine or on the billboard, whatever it is. And there's no way to respond. There's no way to have a conversation. But online, you get to have a conversation. So don't post things and then walk away and do nothing, kind of that not responding. If people ask a question or leave a comment or something, say something to them. That's all I mean by this. I think a lot of people really like, they treat social media marketing like a check on their list of things to do. And just like, okay, I put something out and now I'm done. Not necessarily. It's just, again, it's good customer service, and it's using social media. First of all, again, it's called social media because it's social, it should be, but it's a way to build relationships. So you build relationships by having conversations, by responding to people, basically. So just my point here is just respond to everyone. That's how you build rapport and trust so that people want to do business with you. Again, it goes back to that, so that they know you, like you, and trust you. Again, we said, like, if you walked into the store and they walked away without answering your question, you don't like that person. You don't trust that person. You don't want to buy from that person. Very simply, you're like, okay, I'm done. Bye-bye. So it's really just responding. And I have a good example of this if you want to hear it.
Okay.
So this was an experience I had last year with social media done right.
Okay.
So the county fairgrounds near where I live, no county fair because of COVID. So they started doing drive-in movies, which they'd really never done before. And I found out about that on Instagram. That's cool.
Okay.
Something to do. And so they posted what movies they were showing the first couple nights. And I went and talked to my husband about it. And by the time I went back to buy tickets, they were sold out. Oh,
sorry.
All right. And I knew they were doing it for several weeks. It was just the first 2 shows were sold out. Okay, fine. So I asked I left a question in the comment, and I made it public because I figure someone else wants to know this too. And I just asked, when did tickets for the next show go on sale? And they answered me. Okay, good. And I put it on my calendar to buy tickets that day. Fine, whatever. And then a few days later, I got a direct message through Instagram from their person saying, we've opened up those first 2 shows. We're able to sell more tickets. And here's the link to where you can buy those tickets. Oh, cool. Great. Click. And I bought tickets for, I think it was actually the first show. It was the movie that I wanted to see. And it was great because my husband and I got to get out of the house after being, kind of sheltering for a very long time at that point.
Yeah.
And they made money. And that's the point here, is that's where the ROI is. That's where you get a return on investments. It's on having those conversations and building a relationship. Now, notice it doesn't take that much. I don't even know if this was a man or a woman I was talking to, but they were responsive to my comment and they provided more information, in this case, their messaging, when I needed it, or information that I would want. And I bought. They made more money. They sold tickets. We got out of the house. Everybody wins.
Yeah. Okay. Now I have a question.
Sure.
So, so typically, what we do, what everyone, at least in the business space, have started doing is scheduling your post bulk in advance, and then most of us have sort of stopped spending as much time on social media as consumers. So we only check for, like, let's say a few times a week for a few minutes. It's so how do we factor in, I have scheduled this post in advance and I don't have that, I don't spend as much time on social media. And then also, what about those comments that are just like nice or one emoji? Do I still respond to that?
So yes, respond to that for 2 reasons. One, again, it gives the algorithm a little bit more information. It shows that you're engaged with people, that you're responding, but it's also okay, this is some kind of conversation. Okay. And it counts just to say thank you, or that's so nice of you, whatever is appropriate. And it is. A lot of times it's just very short. That's fine. I like to try to ask a follow-up question. You want to try to start a conversation. Again, first of all, it's building that relationship with the person, but it also tells the system something, is that you are more engaged, that you are more involved on it. In terms of like just checking out a few minutes a day, if you want your social media for your business to be more effective, it's probably going to take a little bit more than that. I try to suggest ways for people to do it that's manageable. I mean, no one wants to spend 2 hours a day checking their Facebook. I totally get that. Like I don't even want to do that, frankly. Right. So you can be, well, yeah, I was going to say, well, fix your social media if it's depressing. Get rid of the stuff that's depressing. We don't need more of that in the world. But there's 2 things that I suggest to people who are like, well, I want to check it. I want to be more responsive, but I don't want to be spending a ton of time. Yeah. And I usually suggest, like, if you do 15 minutes a day per platform, you're probably okay. But the real thing there is, what are you doing in those 15 minutes? That if you checking your personal feed, your friends, does not count. That's not the 15 minutes I'm talking about. So what, right? And it happens to me all the time. Invariably, I'm primarily a Facebook user. If I turn on Facebook, it's uncanny how often that first post is absolutely something I want to respond to. It's something I want to comment on from a friend. Most of the time. Sometimes it's a group, but it sucks you in. Like, it's very much designed for that. You have to recognize that. Just accept it and work around it.
Yeah.
So one thing I like to do, I find helpful, is looking at my notifications. So I leave all my notifications on, because it's not going to notify me as often that my friend posted a picture with her dog. It will tell me when someone posted something new in a group I'm in, or or responded to something that I already commented on. I also go look at the notifications for my page. Again, not specifically the ones for my personal feed, but the ones for my page. So again, it's a little bit more business centric, that it ends up a little bit more efficient in terms of your time. And if I feel like staying later and seeing what my friends are talking about, then I do that, then that's fine. But and I literally set a timer. Like, if it makes you feel better, because you're right, you will get sucked in. Otherwise, it can happen. I'm all for just setting a timer, and when it goes off, and go on with your life.
Okay. You said that answers the question. I will try
And
to
the
be
other
more.
thing, sorry, go ahead.
No, I think I'll try to be more present on social media. I just schedule this stuff out. Like I'll try to
Right.
be a little more engaged in social media.
Right. And the other thing about notifications, again, you have to make sure they're all on and kind of set for this, but it will tell you when someone commented on your post. So you don't actually have to go look at your post. It will tell you whether it's there, and then you go respond to it.
Okay.
So it makes it a little bit faster because it'll like tell you what is actually something to do here. Because otherwise, yeah, it could be forever scrolling.
That makes sense. And so speaking of social media, let's talk about, say, Instagram, for example.
Sure.
So most people tend to do this thing where there is this belief. I think I don't know if I watched it in a course somewhere, that you find a hashtag that your audience cares about and just comment on the 10 or 20 newest posts. Just comment on it. Does that, as a social media expert, do you think that's a feasible Instagram strategy for growing your following and growing engagement?
So, good question. It's something I have been playing with myself lately. I think for me, it begs the question of the time. Again, I'm
That's
really big. Yeah, I'm really big on what is most effective and what is most efficient, because I think that's part of the stress that goes into it. So yes, I have heard that, and it probably works. I don't do that too much, mostly because I spend that first 15 minutes and often just 15 minutes checking out what is already those notifications and kind of what's going on mine. And I feel like it's a good way to grow your following. It's not a good way to deepen relationships. So it's a little bit of having to balance those, right? And that's why, like, I will go through and look at the posts in my own feed, which for me on Instagram is mostly business.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to build relationships with those people, not just as customers or clients, but also as potential partners, as people who might be referrals. So, and actually, I just hired one. I just had my website redesigned, and it was actually someone who I followed on social. I never met this person in real life. She lives in Florida, the opposite side of the country. She did a fabulous job. And it was because of social media that I chose to work with her, that she had been posting things and I had been seeing that just makes sense, that she knows what she's talking about. She gave a lot of examples of her work. She does beautiful work. She shared testimonials that show people are happy with her work. And ultimately, it is why I work with her. It's the only way I found her.
Okay, that makes sense. So we've covered
the hashtag thing. I would say is secondary.
Okay.
I do it, and it does help kind of talking. Yeah, I was going to say it does help grow your following. Like I said, I tend to focus a little bit more on where can I build relationships, deepen relationships that are there. But, there's a give and take. You want to meet people to build a relationship with, so you have to do that. So
you have to do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know I've seen that a lot. People talk about that. Another one someone had suggested to me was to go to a hashtag that my audience care about, and then on the first comment, I can comment and then do the usual comment, and then check out your profile. And if something on their profile, a content they've created makes sense, I share it to my Instagram story, since they will automatically get a notification for that.
Right.
So I guess that's something someone else suggested. That's what I want to try and see before a week, and see I've spent this much time in a week. What result have I gotten? So that's my next experiment. Let's call it that.
Right. And I've heard that, and I've only done it a few times, mostly because it does take a lot of time.
It's exhausting.
Because you don't want to do it as you go to the hashtag and take the first post and share it to your people.
No,
you want to be sharing something to your people that is relevant to your people.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's just a matter of finding that, and that just takes time. There's a lot of posts in that hashtag that are fine on their own, but they may not be relevant to you, and they may not be relevant or of interest or helpful to your
Yeah.
audience. You always want to be a resource for your audience. So you only want to be sharing what is going to be relevant and helpful for them. So I've ended up doing that probably literally only a few times because it takes all that time to get to where like,
Yes.
oh, this is
I
cool.
know.
And this is someone I've never heard of, but like this is a cool post and a really good point for my audience. So I'm going to share it. So again, it's how much time do you want to be spending on it?
Okay. So we've covered the two mistakes: selling too much, posting and ghosting, right? So now let's go to the third one.
Yep. So the third one I think that stresses people out is thinking they have to do everything themselves.
Yes.
That I'm sure you've heard you have to post 5 times a week and post on your stories every day and share videos and go live, on and on and on. And it can be that thing that kind of drives you crazy, or at least stresses you out. And then a lot of people will just do nothing.
Yep.
I did a survey of a handful of business owners, and on average, people say they spend about 3 hours a week, or the most common answer was about 3 hours a week on social media.
Oh, wow.
But another quarter of people said 6 hours, and then even more people said more. I think a lot of that is if you're posting frequently and if you're on multiple platforms, because if you post something on Facebook, you can post it on Instagram, except you can't post it with a link. You can post it on LinkedIn, but it has to be shorter. Like sometimes there's little tweaks that have to be made.
Yes.
So like if you're doing more than one platform,
and word count limits. Yeah.
Right. And other kind of limits or different tools that are available on different platforms. Yes. So that all just kind of takes more work. So, and that's all on top of if you're writing a post, if you're researching a post, if you're taking the picture or having to find the picture, maybe editing the picture or video or taking the video. It's a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm a big fan of having people demonstrate their expertise by curating content, by sharing other content that is relevant to their audience and would be interesting. So like we were just talking about, you can find that elsewhere on social media, and Instagram makes it real easy to share to stories, which is great.
Yeah.
I generally set up searches, like Google searches is one way I do it, to find places that do similar work to what I do, but obviously not competitors. So I'm not going with another social media manager.
More complementary.
Right. Something complementary. I like to pick things that I'm a fan of. So for example, I use a couple different scheduling platforms. One of them is Hootsuite, and they have a really good blog. So a lot of times it's kind of in the weeds. It's very technical, but sometimes their blog is information that I'm like, oh, this would be really useful for my audience. This is something that could help them right now. And I don't have to write the whole thing. I don't have to do all the research for it. Just share their blog.
Yeah.
And again, it makes you the resource. It makes you still the expert in the area. It's here's things to look at that are important in you doing your social media. One point about doing this, I try to be really clear on, is super important. Don't steal content. And so just give credit where it's due. That's really easy with something like a blog post. I'm sharing the link to Hootsuite. It's obviously Hootsuite.
Yeah.
But the one I think people sometimes flounder on is if it's an image, if it's a graphic that someone has made, it's really easy to grab that offline, off Google, off Instagram, take a screenshot, but give credit to whoever it's from. Someone made that, someone came up with that. And to me, it's just good karma. It's
effort into it.
Right. It's ethics. Just give them credit for that. And there's ways to do that. Sometimes and I've even heard people sometimes there's either a watermark from a photographer or a tagline or URL on the image.
Photo credits
and people will cut that off. Don't cut that off. Again, that's that person's work and artwork and thought, if it's a quote kind of thing. So just give credit where it's due.
Yeah.
On that one.
I think I think as somebody who did that, I think a few years back, it was 2020, 2015, a few years back. And now I obviously know better because now I'm actually creating my content. And if you stole my content, I spent literally hours creating, I would be so angry. and irritated
Right.
and just
Yes.
grumpy. And so
Yes.
before, I used to have this really ridiculous mentality that photo credit somehow distracted from the overall graphic.
Mm.
Yeah. Then what I think is not until you start creating your own content that you actually realize that I don't care if it distract from this graphic. I made the damn thing. Respect it.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, that's not for you to say whether or not it's
Yes.
distracting. And granted, I mean, most of the time it's not like a giant watermark through the middle of the photo, but like, yeah, if someone's name or website is on the bottom in the corner, leave it there. And I'll give the person credit. And this all goes back to something we were saying earlier about being consistent on the platform and how often do you have to post. Curating content really helps you be consistent because you're just sharing someone else's. And I would say, though, don't overdo this one. I see some people who almost only curate content. They'll share articles. Most often this happens on LinkedIn, but I've seen it elsewhere too. They'll be sharing news articles and it's on their topic, and that's fine. It doesn't seem to get a whole lot of engagement. And I've also seen some people where they hire a service that puts out content for them, and it's from a, how do I explain it? It's often from like a vendor of someone they work with. So for example, one was an accountant and they use a couple different kinds of software. And one of their software vendors said, hey, do you want us to post on social media for you? And the guy didn't want to do his social media. So he says, yeah, sure, great. You post for me. So the vendor posts all this stuff generally about their software.
Yep.
Not about the accountant's service, even though he uses the software. And I asked him, I says, how's that going for you? You know, do you find that that's helpful? He says, oh, no, it's absolutely nothing. It brings in absolutely nothing. And he's an accountant. He's keeping track of it, right? Right. And that's what I said. I was like, okay, so you know you can ditch that, right? He's like, yeah, I know.
Like dump it immediately.
Like that is, and any penny you're paying for that is not worth it. You know, you're not doing anything. So there is a limit. Don't overdo it on the curated content, but it's really helpful filling in a little bit more. So you don't have to be doing everything yourself.
Yeah.
And you still get to be the expert.
Yeah. So now my question on the curated part is this. How often should I post curated posts onto my social media platform? And should I stick to like just one source, or do I sort of mix it up?
Generally, I would say mix it up, unless I'm trying to think of an example of like an industry or a position that would make sense to only have one, and I can't off the top of my head. Like generally mix it up. So I know a business coach, and he posts a lot of articles, and they're from Forbes and Fortune and the Wall Street Journal and Harvard Business Review. Yeah, it's a bunch of different places that are very appropriate for his audience. And, you know, it's helpful to see kind of on different topics of things that he works with, you know, related to what he provides to his clients. For me, it's definitely not just Hootsuite. I have a, what's it called? Google News setup. That, you could do any, I mean, those are still just all scheduling platforms, but it could be anything. I have a Google News set up for social media marketing, and a lot of times they'll come up with stuff that is not what you want. So this is the point of curate. Don't just share everything.
Oh, okay.
But look at it and be like, is this of interest or relevant or helpful for my audience? And share that. It depends how much to do. I would say depends on how much you are creating otherwise. It should really mostly be yours. I haven't come up with a number on this. I'm kind of thinking as I'm talking. I know like a while ago when I first started, yes, I was creating my own content, but I didn't have a ton of it yet. So I was using curated content every week. Now, it's probably every few weeks that's something in there, because I have a ton of stuff that I want to be posting. And it's also, like I said, I'm in this season of, I just launched a program, a new offering that I'm talking about more. So I have more of my stuff to talk about and share. So it's a little bit less. But yeah, you get to a point where it's, you're
Fill in
not
the
in that
blanks,
kind of
I guess.
selling mode, and you're not, maybe, I don't want to say run out of ideas. Hopefully you never run out of ideas, but a lot of times it's also just like when I see it that it makes sense. So I'll give you a real good example. Anybody who does any kind of blog on any kind of marketing does a post at the beginning of the year about trends for 2021, whatever that is, right? Like there are a million of these kinds of articles.
Yeah.
And I shared one of them because those are helpful. It's like there's something to look at that it does make sense. It's the right time for it.
I was looking at one yesterday actually for like best time for social media 2021. So yeah,
right.
I can relate.
Right. There's something like that, like at the beginning of the year, end of the year, there's always, because a lot of people are looking at their marketing strategy at that point, maybe reevaluating or doing their own audit, whatever it is. So those kinds of things come out, and that makes sense. And they also, I would say about like big events are also ones that could be really interesting. I know, like, again, here in the US last year, there was kind of a whole, it was not a fun period around June, and it gets lumped together called Black Lives Matter, even though that's not really a great description of what was going on. But I'm sure there were a lot of articles about that, because one of the things social media people do is helping you understand like when you're posting or what to post, or at least thinking about what you're posting in periods like that, whether it's, sometimes it's even easier. It's like natural disasters. I remember I was talking to a client and they're like, yeah, I'm not going to be asking this person about this for a little while because they're in the path of a hurricane this week. Okay,
be more sensitive about their issues.
Right. Maybe you change what you're talking about if you know stuff like that's going on. A lot of people for Black Lives Matter stop posting. It's either you're going to contribute to that conversation or you're going to not say anything in order to let that conversation happen, make space for it, as opposed to la la la, here's my candle or whatever, can come off as tone deaf. Although people still always want dog pictures at times like that. You still want something that's feel good. So, and that's the balance to strike.
Makes sense. Okay. Well, so we have covered a lot. We've covered, don't do everything by yourself. In which case we talk about curation, we talk about actually giving credit to other people's content. Don't steal it. Respect the effort that went into it. And we talked about posting and ghosting, where you actually engage with people, even if it's just one of those nice comments or thumbs up emoji, just reply to it. And then
respond to everybody.
Yes, then try to ask like a question so that there's more engagement going through with that. Then we talk about don't do sales posts every single time. Try the 80-20 formula, where it's 80% actual, valuable, educative, entertaining content, and then 20% your sales post, right?
Right. Yeah, you got it.
Woo! Yeah, we got that right.
Well, you're taking good notes. Yes.
Yeah, of course I am. I'm learning a lot. I mean, I personally find social media exhausting, and
a lot of people do.
As somebody who follows lots of marketing blog, like if you're following Hootsuite's, HubSpot's blog, there's always this advice. HubSpot says this. Later, the social media scheduling tool, their blog says this, and then at some point it's just too much.
Yeah.
So I just like to take easy, doable things I can work with realistically.
And I think that's kind of the other thing to always keep in mind. And I'm sure this applies to a lot of different areas of your business, but there's always more that you could be doing if you are more than one person or there were more than 24 hours in a day. But you are one person and there are only 24 hours in a day for all of us. So yeah, could you do 9 other things? Sure, if you had a team.
Yeah.
Doing it yourself, like I said, I'm very big on making it manageable, making it effective. Kind of what are the things that are get the biggest impact out of it? And then maybe just do those, don't worry about all the other stuff you could be doing, because you probably don't want to be spending
what I can realistically do.
Right. Because you want to do something else in your business. Most people got into their business not to do digital marketing. They got into it because they want to do something else. They love something else. They want to help people in a different way, whatever their special thing is. So it's striking that balance of you want to market so that you can help more people, but you don't want it taking up all your time by any means. Just kind of throwing spaghetti at the wall. A lot of people are like, yep, I'm winging it. Yeah, the best idea is not to be winging it. Yep. It's you want to have a strategy. You want to have a plan. I'm real big on calendars. It makes it so much simpler. It's like, yes, you take the time to build that. But then like when I sit down to do my social media, like I've got my plan. I'm going to write about this and this and this and do this video and I'm done.
Yeah.
Like, and it goes, and it's that less stress. It's not even just the less time. It's that you're not sitting there going, ooh, you know, pulling your hair out.
What life post today?
Exactly. Because that's the thing that's stressful, that makes you anxious. I don't want that. I don't want that for people.
So as someone who's been doing social media for a while, is there like a misconception that, let's say, your clients or your prospects or people you've sort of seen or lined up, people you've interacted with, are there misconceptions that you've sort of spotted that keeps popping up?
There's a lot. One we've talked about a lot, which is, and probably like the most common one, is this idea that you have to do everything and be everywhere all the time.
Yeah,
and
have 5 platforms, social media accounts.
Right, exactly. And you have to be on video every day. Oh my God, no. So I think that's it. And I think that it stresses people out who are trying to do it, but I think it also makes a lot of people just walk away from it completely. I can't tell you how often I hear people say, I hate social media. Okay, I don't take that personally. I ask why, because it's usually something that goes down to what we've just been talking about, of the either I don't know what to post, or I feel like it's too salesy, or I hate writing. That's a pretty common one. Okay, don't write, do something else. What?
Like you could do a video if you don't want to write, so just record your voice.
I was gonna say, then you need to get used to it. Right. Or a podcast. I tell people that too. You know, do something else. You're fine. Just figure out something else. Because again, to me, it's about like, what do you have to share with the world, and share that. And it's a great way to share it with a lot of people. I mean, if you think about, I do a lot of networking. And so people who go to networking, you're in a room of, let's say 30 people or online still. And then you go meet up and talk to, let's say 3 or 4 of them. Great. But social media gives you the opportunity to talk to hundreds, if not thousands of them at once. To show yourself as that expert in what you do, to show yourself as a likable person and a trustable person, and someone that they might want to do business with or refer you to. Again, it's the idea of, maybe I don't need a social media manager, but I might know someone else who does. Or maybe I don't need a sales coach, but I know someone else who does.
Right.
Or I don't need...
Everyone is a potential referral when you think about it.
Right. Exactly. You know, maybe I don't need makeup products, but I might know someone else who is looking for something different. It gives you the chance to reach an awful lot of people. And free. Like the platforms are free. I'm not advertising, but
you gotta pay for it.
It's cheaper than a lot of things, right? And that's a whole different topic we shouldn't get into. But but yeah, it's more affordable than a lot of things. So. And you get to target your audience is the other difference. It's like, yeah, you could put it in a magazine, but if I put something in a magazine,
that's the fun part.
Right. Like my local magazine.
Like who I want to talk to. That's so fun.
Right. Exactly. I was like, so if I put something in my local magazine, it goes to a bunch of people who are not business owners. They have no interest in help with social media marketing, right?
Yeah.
But online, you can find where I'm targeting people who might be interested in this. So get to talk to your ideal people a little bit easier.
Yeah. Okay, so we've covered a lot social media wise. Let's now talk about, like, you're obviously the certified social media person. I saw your certification on your website for HubSpot social media and inbound. And so if, let's say I'm a business owner, whether I'm a coach or I'm a small business owner, and social media, like for me, it's depressing, or it's like this black hole that just sucks you in, and it's just exhausting. And I'm like, well, Deborah has has social media figured out. So how can I work with you? How can Deborah help me with the social media?
Sure. So how I work with clients is that it starts with a conversation with them and kind of looking at where they are now and then coming up with a plan and strategy. I do a deep dive into where they are now, what they've been posting, what their audience is, and what they want to be doing and who they want to be reaching. And are they reaching, looking at, are they reaching those people or how do we do that? So it starts off with, like I said, kind of the key piece to me is having a strategy, having an approach that works, that's customized for you and your business. It's not the same for everybody in every kind of business. And coming up with a calendar, coming up with a plan, looking at different types of content to post, and then teaching people how to do that better themselves. So I no longer do a done for you service where I'll create it all for you, because what I want is to be able to help people who might not be at the point where they can outsource it completely and just like spend hundreds of dollars a month or $1,000 a month even paying someone else to do it. A lot of business owners can't do that. A lot of nonprofits can't do that. But if they have someone able to do it and you can teach them to do it better so that it's more effective. And again, so it's just not that winging it. It's I post 3 times a week, but I'm not getting anybody responding to it. Okay, I can show you how to probably fix a few things that will get more people to respond to it. And then I continue working with them. It's a one-on-one. It's not a group program. I work one-on-one and talking them through looking at how that strategy is going every month, having them look at their numbers. We didn't really talk about this much, but one of the things I think is most important is really looking at what's working and what's not, so that you stop doing what's not working.
What's working, yes.
Right, like let's ditch that and try something else. And so kind of how to look at that. A lot of people, I've heard people say like, there's so much information, like the metrics, the numbers, but like, what am I looking for and what's it mean? Yeah, let's talk about that. And I'll straighten that out. And then fine tuning it and just constantly making it better. So I work together with people. It's a 3-month program. If people want to work longer, they can work together longer. So, and I call it the stress-free social media guide, because that is the idea. I am your guide and I'm going to teach you how to do it and make it not stressful.
Okay, so how do I find the stress-free social media guide? Like, where do I go to? Your social media, like your Instagram or your website? Like, where do I go to for this?
So no surprise, I'm all over social media. I am you can find Finestone Marketing Solutions on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Okay. It's Finestone_MS on Twitter. Everything else is pretty much Finestone Marketing Solutions. Okay. My website is dfinestone.com, because my name is Deborah Finestone. And yeah, those are the easiest ways to find me. On my website is an easy way to book a free consultation call, talk about what you're looking for, what you're thinking about, what your problems are, and see if we'd be a good fit. It's kind of a no pressure. If you're really at the point of like really wanting help, book a call.
Okay, so once again, on her website, dfinestone.com, it's going to be in the description below as well. So you can book that free consultation with her and just sort of talk to Deborah, so she knows where you're coming from, what you're doing, what you need, and see if she would be a good fit for you. If the social media, that's goal, that's idea you want social media to have, that's realistic, and if she can take you to that goal you're trying to hit social media wise, right?
Exactly. And I'll tell you, if you're not ready to like book that call, go ahead and send me a message on any of those social media platforms. Look through my content, see if it's the kind of thing you want help with, comment on it. And like I said earlier, I promise you I will respond.
You talk about posting and ghosting. So
right, exactly. I'm like, I respond to everybody. I do what I say, tell other people to do.
So we've learned a lot from you social media wise. I have a lot to try out. For me, that would mostly be the curation part. I need to do more of that. I've not posted any sales related posts in a while, so I'm gonna actually also do some sales posts instead of just podcast posts and blog posts. And maybe once in a while a freebie. I'm gonna talk about my actual products. Right. I also want to try the engaging part. So even if somebody leaves like a thumbs up or a smiley emoji or a nice, I will try to respond to that. just sort of like get more engagement to my social media. So those are my personal takeaways. For those
Good.
of you who are watching this or listening to this, just comment with your takeaways and things you are going to implement going forward. Don't just listen to this and just go yes, 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 or nod your head. No, really put it to practice. Take action. That's why we have Deborah here to help us take action.
Yes, it is all about kind of being willing to try something a little bit different. Sometimes, let's push yourself a little bit. But the other thing I find is that it gets easier. Is that like even I spend a lot of time on social media, no surprise, and that's still a challenge for me even. But even when it becomes more fun and it becomes more social and it's talking to people I generally like. Hopefully you're out there, whatever you're doing, you should be talking to people you would generally like also. So it's not just robotic.
Yeah, I need to work on something less robotic. But
It is. And if you're talking to people you like, you're also talking to people who probably like you, and that's the point. Is that if you, it's that whole you are likable, but it also means so it goes both ways in that you get to like. I probably wouldn't quite call too many people friends that I've met on social media, but some of them I do. People that I've never, but sometimes I do. And some of them, people can be helpful. The other day I was having a problem with something and I reached out to a few people, only one of who I've ever talked to in person, and everybody's happy to help. So you just got to find your people. Everybody's out there on social somewhere.
That's true. Well, so this has been fun. I have learned a lot, and I hope those listening to this, you've also learned a lot. This is Deborah Finestone from Finestone Marketing Solution. And today she told us about the 3 common mistakes we make in social media and how to fix them. So I hope you're putting this to practice and actually fixing these mistakes. If you one of those who've made one or more of these mistakes. So that brings us to the end of the podcast. Thank you for being on.
Thank you for having me. I've had a good time, and I hope I've been helpful to you and everybody listening.
Oh, you've definitely been helpful. To me personally, you've definitely been very helpful.
Good.